Hey everyone, this is D Movie Man, fellow cinephile, popcorn addict, and emerging film critic, coming to you with reliable recaps, reviews, and reactions. So, before I start, let me first and foremost thank everyone that has supported my channel overall, and definitely my new subscribers as well. I recently reached 100 subscribers on here, and I am really excited about it. I know that to some people it's not a lot, but just the fact that I'm doing this, because I didn't think I would, it took me many years to get to this place right here. And so just to be doing it at all, to have any likes, to have any subscribers, to have any comments, I am very grateful, so humbled, and so appreciative. So I just wanted to thank you all for your support, new or old. I'm very appreciative. Also, shout out to my girl Sakina. She is a fellow YouTuber and she has been very helpful and very supportive as I've been going through this journey. She even gave me a shout out, sent some new subscribers my way. So I am very grateful to her for her support. Sakina, if you're watching, I know I've said it time and time again, but once again, thank you. I'm not gonna keep beating a dead horse. I'm gonna leave you alone now, but once again, thank you so much. And if you guys really enjoy TV show recaps, please check her out. Her channel is Simply Sakina. I will link it down below in the description box. But yeah, please feel free to subscribe, to watch some videos, to check her channel out, and definitely support her. So now that I have gotten all of that out of the way, let me go ahead and say that this was almost a very different video. I kid you not. I finished watching this and I was like, okay, all right. It's time to go. It's time to go. I'm ready. Like, oh, okay. I got to get down here so I can talk. I was like, I was hyped up. I was revved up. I was like, oh my gosh. I have so much to say and none of it is nice. Okay. I was like, whoo, I'm about to go in. You weren't going to get an intro. You weren't going to get pros and cons. I was just going to sit down and be like, okay. So let me tell y'all what's up. I was about to really switch things up for a minute. But then I got talked off of the emotional ledge. So I was like, okay, let me take a step back, take a little chill pill, give myself room to breathe, think about all this rationally and not just emotionally, and just come back and do my typical review in my typical format, and it's all good. So now that I've given you guys all that information, the review. So today I'll be reviewing the Prime Video series Them, created by Little Marvin and executive produced by Lena, Waithe, and starring Deborah Ayorinde and Ashley Thomas. This is actually a horror anthology series, and this first season is centered around the Emery family. It is set in 1953, and it follows their journey during the Second Great Migration from North Carolina to an all-white neighborhood in LA. Compton, to be exact. However, they soon realize their new home is not all that it appears to be, and they find themselves having to contend with evil forces, seen and unseen, that threaten to destroy their very existence. So, let me start off with the pros. Are there any pros? Okay, I guess there are a couple of pros. Listen, I'm gonna do my best to be nice and have a good attitude. So, the pros. So the first thing I'll say is that aesthetically, this looks really good. The cinematography, the style, the color palette, all of that. There were a lot of shots that were very crisp and very distinct. I will give it that. The camera work and the styling of it was really nice. Ironically enough, there are a lot of moments when I was watching the scenes and my mind instantly went to Edward Scissorhands. Basically, the whole contrast between this colorful, bright, quirky neighborhood and this darker, creepier element that's there among them. I'm sure some of you may have caught the irony in what I just said. I also have to give it up to the absolutely talented cast of this story. Deborah Ayorinde, Ashley Thomas, Shahadi Wright Joseph, and Melody Hurd. All solid, talented actors. I enjoyed them. I appreciate that they really put their all into this. And I really hope that going forward, they're able to participate in other projects that have a more nuanced perspective and allow them to have a range of emotions. And an additional shout out to Melody Hurd. I mean, I know casting child actors can be very dicey, but she was so charming, so charismatic, so in tune. Like, she was so mesmerizing. Not just because she's young and cute, but her performance really kept me engaged throughout the story. Like, there are a lot of times where I was like, oh my gosh, I can't keep going. And then she would pop up in a scene and I was just like, okay, you got me back. I also have to say, I really loved seeing Anika, Noni Rose and Paula J. Parker in this. I enjoyed both their characters, their scenes, and they both really captured me when I was watching them on screen. But yeah, overall, extremely talented cast. And now, the cons, the cons, the cons. I'll be honest, I really don't know where to begin with this. Like, I don't even know where to start when it comes to this. Like, but I will start by asking a simple question. Who is this for? Can anyone answer that for me? Is it for black people? Is it for white people? Is it for other races? And I'll actually take that a step further. Is this for black people who don't know their history? Is it for white people who want to remember their history? Is it for other races to see what the history has been between black people and white people in America? I am just a little clueless. Is this for white people who want to watch this and feel like, I am a little prejudiced, okay? But I'm not that bad, okay? I wouldn't take it that far. Someone, anyone, please, help me understand. So I watched all 10 episodes of this and I made sure to get it out the way quickly. I was like, I am not stretching this out over any more days. I am not watching this a minute longer than I have to. And not only do I not know who this is for, I don't understand what the message is. Now, is the message racism is bad and racist white people do evil things to black people? Because if so, I've known that for a very long time. So maybe I don't know who it's for, but clearly it's not for me. Not me, who has studied their history, who has learned, who has taken the time, who has had conversations. Surely, this is not for me. I fail to see what I am meant to possibly discern or learn from this series in regards to race relations, racism, discrimination, white supremacy. I fail to see what this is adding to the conversation, other than some really messed up visuals. So I don't want to bog this down, but the first thing I will say is that this is not a horror series. It is presenting itself like a horror series, a la American Horror Story, but it's really not. This was just an excuse to showcase all these really ugly aspects of racism that some of us know and some of us don't, but regardless, has been happening for hundreds of years. And the aspect of horror they attempted to tie into this, to me, was extremely weak. I just thought it was just such a throwaway. Because for me, a big part of what I love about horror is the mystery aspect. The fact that there is some aspect of what's happening in the story that is shrouded in mystery. So like, why is this house haunted? What happened here? What is the twist? What's the bigger story? Like, I love finding those things out, even as I'm very tense and on edge, because there's always another story underneath that. The story was really all over the place, and there are a lot of plot threads within the story that are left unresolved. Don't really understand that. I think what I really don't like is that this series feels as if it is presenting itself as a clever or intelligent or insightful look at racism in America. But it's none of those things. It's very exploitative, it's very hollow, and very unnecessary. I specifically said in my trailer reaction video that I did not want to go into this and see a black family being terrorized and traumatized. But I said I was going to give it the benefit of the doubt because, you never know. Looks can be deceiving. Well, no, looks are not deceiving. Actually, looks are deceiving, but not in the way that I thought. I went in thinking, you know what, this might be a big old hunk of black trauma, but maybe there's a twist. Maybe there's something underneath. What's really funny to me is that when I look at the trailer, even looking at the trailer reaction video that I did, my reaction is really to the last maybe like 20 seconds. And there are a lot of ideas in my head that I had about what was going to happen. I figured there were some twists with the family. I'll be honest, especially the way the first episode opened, I was thinking, wait a minute, this looks like maybe this was further back in the past. They look a little more rural. Looks like a different time period possibly. So I was thinking, oh, maybe they're immortal, or maybe they have abilities, or maybe there's some secret, like they have some kind of something that people don't know about, and maybe they've been moving around the US, or they keep having to move. Like, there has to be something else going on here, because when I saw all that fire zigzagging through the frame at the end, I was like, oh, wait a minute. And of course it took me by surprise, but I was like, oh, maybe there's something else here. Well, alas, no, absolutely not. Not only are we seeing a black family being terrorized, we are also seeing lynchings, burnings, sexual assault, infanticide, murder, death, blood, gore. I was blown away, and not in a good way. And listen, I absolutely know how I feel about black trauma films. I've seen enough of them over the years to know. Is life a fairy tale? No. Are there always happy endings in life? No. Is life always a walk in the park? No. However, it's very interesting to me that this narrative is reoccurring over and over and over and over again. If it's not slavery films, then it's civil rights films. If it's not civil rights films, then it's gangster films. If it's not gangster films, then it's police brutality films. And I'm just like... And listen, I am aware that there are other stories being told, and I will always support those stories. And I am someone who grew up surrounded by Black storytelling in books, from my family, in TV and movies. Like, I saw this whole diaspora of the Black experience through those mediums. And I was able to see, oh, being Black isn't just this, but it's all these beautiful, great, fantastical, magical things. And that is so impactful for me to have seen at, 4, 5, 6, 7. I've never forgotten that. And that's why it's all the more important that I see that represented, so that other children or even young adults, that they're able to see that and have that same belief and understanding. And if I'm really being honest, Black trauma is not really the issue, because Black trauma does exist. It is a real thing. It affects a lot of different people in a lot of different ways, in many different experiences throughout the years. And on some level, I can appreciate exploring that in some kind of nuanced, in-depth way. But the problem with projects like this is that the Black trauma in question, there's no insight, there's no humanity, there's no in-depth exploration, there is no reclaiming of identity, there is no perspective changing, there is no call to action, there is no acknowledgement of self. It's none of that. And I feel like if there is no development in at least how a character responds to a situation like that, especially when it's horrible, horrible, brutal things, then what is the point? Because no, I wouldn't like seeing it, but at least if there was some kind of something underneath just this suffering that is happening, then at least there's some perspective, whether I think it's messed up or not. But there is no perspective. There is no deeper insight. It's just like, nope, we're going to be bloodied and bruised and beaten the entire time. And I think that's pretty foul, especially because a lot of this feels like shock value. It's like, you know what? Let's go all the way there. Let's not do this with any nuance or any tact or with some layers of complexities. No, let's just go as hard as we can with all sorts of graphic violence and murder and blood and everything else. Now, we know this happened, absolutely. Like, no one's negating the reality. And the thing I keep seeing people say that, like, oh, you want them to sugarcoat the reality? I mean, this really happened. They need to know. People need to know. I'm like, who needs to know? Who? Who needs to know? Racist white people need to know? Black people need to know? Other races need to know? Who needs to know? Because if you are not already aware of this history, especially as a Black person, then you're in trouble. Because my first awareness of that was when I was about 7 or 8 and I saw Rosewood for the first time. You talk about traumatizing. You talk about next level, like, this really happened. I understood slavery, I understood racism and discrimination on some level, but that was like off the charts for me. And then you grow up and then you kind of see, oh, it's not just this one story. There is a widespread history of things like this and things that are 10 times worse. And for me, when people are so bold as to say, well, y'all should watch this anyway because y'all need to learn, y'all need to know. What do I need to learn and what do I need to know? Because I can't learn any more than what I already know. And when people continue to make this whole stand of saying, like, it ain't that big a deal, y'all need to watch it, y'all need to get over it, and all this other stuff, right? The same thing when people saying, like, we need to watch When They See Us. Why? I appreciate the actors and the cast and the director, like the story being told. I'm never going to be mad at that. But when it comes down to it, what do you expect me to do when ultimately what I'm doing is subjecting myself to a whole lot of rage and trauma and frustration and sadness and anxiety to relive a story and a reality that I'm already familiar with? People continuing to push and push people to support, you need to watch, you need to learn, and suggesting that we consume this kind of imagery over and over again, it just kind of blows my mind a little bit. I'll even kick it to you like this. So when we're kids and there's an adult at the stove, usually we know not to touch the stove because they'll let us know, hey, don't touch that, it's hot. Hey, don't touch that, it's hot. And we listen to them, but it's not until we have the actual experience, because some of us are bad, hard-headed, and don't listen. But it's not until some of us actually go forward and touch the stove and realize, oh no, that's hot, that we realize, okay, not touching that again. We have gained knowledge from the experience, and we now have applied it to the future. And my issue with people continuing to push, like, we need to know, we need to watch, my issue with that is that that suggestion is the equivalent of touching the stove over and over and over and over again. Why? Because I need to learn, because I need to know, because I need to remember. What person in their right mind is going to continue to touch a hot stove and burn themselves over and over again? The lesson is learned, the knowledge is gained, let's move on. And I even think it would be one thing if it was like a film here, a film there, a couple of films there, a couple of films there, but this is widespread. This is a bulk of the imagery that involves Black people coming out on a regular basis. So that's constant consumption of this kind of imagery over and over again. And like I said, as someone who has seen Black storytelling from so many perspectives as a young child, I don't understand, although I know why, I don't understand why we can't get beyond this. And something else that really disturbs me, and I alluded to this in my trailer reaction video, I find it so interesting that we can't have a romance film with two dark-skinned leads, right? I find it so interesting that when it comes to Nina Simone, no, we're not gonna choose any of these beautiful, talented, dark-skinned actresses. No, we're gonna find clay, mud, treacle, tar, and who knows whatever else to create this alien skin tone to make this mockery and farce, offensive depiction of the Nina Simone, played by yours truly, Zoe Saldana. Do you get where I'm going here? I find it so interesting that in Queen and Slim, we have these two attractive, talented, dark-skinned Black actors in a love story that involves police brutality, them fleeing on the run, in fear, and in the end, just as I suspected, spoiler, 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 they are mercilessly gunned down. And I find it so interesting that when it comes down to projects that have a positive spin to them, dark-skinned people are nowhere to be found. But you can guarantee that someone bright or white will be in the mix somehow. Because even Sylvie's Love, I enjoyed Sylvie's Love, but you mean to tell me that we couldn't have had two brown skin or dark skin leads for that film? I even said that I didn't like the fact that Aja Naomi King and Regé-Jean Page had the more interesting pairing, but yet they weren't at the forefront. We don't see those kind of stories. I know that Regé-Jean Page is lighter, but I'm just saying having a dark-skinned girl at the forefront of this story, I just think that it is such a reoccurring thing, and it's not even like they're trying to hide it at this point. We can't get a story or a show or whatever about a beautiful, talented, dark-skinned family, yes, going through their issues, going through life, not saying that everything is like champagne and roses and rainbows, horseshoes, clovers and balloons, like any of that. However, the fact that we can't get that kind of representation when it comes to dark-skinned people, but as soon as there's a project like this that involves brutalization and dehumanization and violence and blood and all of this, and all of a sudden, ching, 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 we have a dark-skinned family. All right. I think that is absolutely deplorable. And you mean to tell me people still don't see it? Wow. And I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm not trying to make this some big thing, but it is very clear that when it comes to the perspective of Black imagery, there is a skew there. There is a bias in favor of lighter skinned people or interracial pairings or whatever, something that is not specifically black, dark skin, brown skin. I see it all the time. And I'm really tired of it. And I think it's very disgusting that they would do that in this story. That's why I say that I hope the cast continues to go on to do great things, because I think they deserve better than this. I think their talents deserve to be seen and showcased in a project that is not centered around something traumatic like this. And like I said, it's not just about Black trauma, because of course that kind of becomes a buzzword. It's like Black trauma, Black trauma, Black trauma. It's not just about that part, but it's about how it's handled. And if this really wanted to, this could have really been something different. I know we've seen Get Out and Us and Lovecraft Country, Some people may have liked those films, some people may not have. But what you can definitely say about all three of those is that its lens wasn't just about trauma. I kind of side-eyed Lovecraft Country initially because I'm like, look, this is all cool, but this whole racism aspect, this doesn't need to be here. However, I took it for what it was, and there were so many other aspects of that story that made it interesting so that we weren't just focused on that. There was horror, there was science fiction, there was Afrofuturism. There were all these ideas and concepts involving Black people that was intriguing and distinct and unique. And it wasn't the same old, same old. And it wasn't just about us being bopped upside the head and treated horribly throughout the narrative. I would also like to mention that the use of music in this series was really off-putting. Like, I know there are a lot of classic Black songs, 50s, 60s, different kinds of songs there. But I think there were moments where they were used in such a strange way, in a way to where you almost felt like you were watching either a parody or just something that wasn't taking itself seriously. And I'm like, that is the wrong tone for this. You have all these horrible things happening, and then you have these songs almost like it's like I get that they're probably trying to do a contrast, but I'm just like, no, this doesn't really work for me. Episode 5 and episode 9, those are like new heights for me. Those are images that my brain just didn't need. And I did a whole lot of fast forwarding because I'm not gonna sit here and just watch this all play out. It's like, what are we doing here? Why am I sitting here ingesting this? So I'm like, okay, look, I only need to know so I can have a sense of the story, because I don't want to come on here and be like, well, and guessing at what happened. So I was very much aware of what happened, but I was not going to sit there and just take it in. No. So I have to say that both those episodes reached a new low as far as the kind of things we're going to depict in regards to Black people. And once again, we know it happened. Do we need to see it to know it's there? No. Do we need to see every horrible thing in the world to know that they happened? No. So that's what I'm saying. This whole idea that we have to see it. No, we don't. No, we don't. No, we don't. I really just feel like this awesome cast deserved a whole lot better, and they didn't get it. So if I have not already made it clear, this was not it for me. This was a huge letdown. This was a massive disappointment. Even outside of the things I didn't like about it, even outside of the imagery and all that, this was just a misfire anyway. Like, the ending was abrupt. It was such like an unresolved piece of work. And in the end, it felt like it was trying to present all these ideas, but it never said anything. It had nothing new to say. There was nothing it gave that I can take away other than racism is bad and racist white people do evil things to Black people. Got it. And then on top of that, the pacing was horrible. This did not need to be 10 episodes. It did not need to stretch out the way it did. It was just kind of like, why are you stretching this out if ultimately the way that you utilize the story and end things is unresolved? Like, you could have told this story in a much lesser amount of time and it wouldn't have changed anything, in my opinion, because a lot of it was just meandering on. I was just like, oh my gosh. So if I really had to go ahead and give this a grade, I would probably have to give this a D+. And I feel like that's really being generous and really being nice. And really the cast in and of itself, I wish I could rate it higher, but I can't. I just feel like this was just really irresponsible. And I promise you, taking the emotion out of it, it just wasn't good. Let's just say I was totally fine with all these other aspects. I just didn't think it was a really good series. I didn't think it was written well. I didn't think it was developed well. I think they wasted the cast. And ultimately, I was just kind of like, all right, what's next? I definitely feel like this was a misfire. I just feel like there was a lot of wasted opportunities and wasted potential, and there was a whole lot that could have been done with this. And ultimately, it was just there to have a lot of shock value and graphic violence just for the sake of it, and I don't really appreciate that. I'm good on this. So, once again, this is D, Movie Man, signing off, and I'll see you at the movies.